Hi everyone, so as promised, here's the card we're going to, well, it's as an example of one of the cards we're going to make. So this is what I like to call a split panel card. So you've got a continuous scene running through this piece as well that we've also lifted off and put a mat on. So this is one that we made earlier that I posted. And then this is similar to the one we're going to do. I like to change them up a bit, so it doesn't matter if you've not got exactly the same things. You can just make this up as however you want. So this is another one where you can see the scenes running all the way through, even though we've got that other panel on the top. And another one just like this one here. So what we've used for this one is our all-time favourite, the Oriental Blossom. We've got cottontail capers. I think because it's coming to Easter, that's a great one to have. Winter stroll, which I can't stop using once I actually start. Uplifted, which is another one of my favourites. Bow bunting, mini tall trees, swings and things, perfect patch, and also just to finish it off, a little quote from the Good Friends set, which is a really pretty little set as well. So the very first thing that we want to do, well, make sure your card's the right way around, which I have a habit of putting everything upside down. And then we're going to, I've taken a little panel of card that is roughly 2 inches by 2.5 inches. But again, this can be as big or as small as you want. And then we're going to position this in the corner here. Now, again, this could be central. It could be wherever you want. Basically, you're going to make this card now as if this isn't actually here. Save your little mat for later on, because that's when you're going to put for the end when you're going to start matting and layering it. So the very first thing we're going to do now is to start to build up the little scene. So I forgot on the card that we did before, I promised that I'd actually do a little tree line in the background. So there's a lot to get in here, but I'm showing you a few techniques. So obviously you don't have to use every single stamp that we're using, because like I said, there's probably more in there than I would usually put in. So we're going to start by adding our grass. So just with your dry baby wipe, start to blend down. So we've got a little bit of repositionable adhesive on here. Now, if you want to, if you're a little bit worried, keep this side a little bit paler, because we know that's where our little swing and thing is going to go later. So I'm basically doing the background for the card as we're doing now. So I'm just going to put a little bit there. It doesn't have to be a lot. And then with the other side of this paper, we're just going to mask out this little bit that we've done here. And then we can put some skyline in as well. Okay, so again, you might want to hold on to that cardstock just to give it a little bit of extra stability so it doesn't slip. But if it does, just go back and just put it all back together again. So you can see you're just sort of stamping and colouring as if this little piece of card here doesn't exist. We're just going to forget all about it. So I'm going to put more sort of colour on this right hand side of the card than the left, because I know that is where our swing and thing is going to go and some of our greenery. So I don't want that too dark. Okay, so you can just follow this all the way around. And of course you could put a little bit of blue in this if you want to. In fact, we might just do that. We might have a little bit of blue on the other side, just to change it up a bit so you get to see something a little bit different. So be careful you're going to use blue, because if you sort of mix the two together, you're going to end up with a green here where they meet. So sort of just do it a little bit on the corners here and maybe don't let them meet. But what is also a nice colour, so this is that Atlantic that we're using here. And then what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of the peony. So anybody who knows me knows these are my sort of favourite go-to colour palette for the spring and the summer. And then what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of red. So this is a camellia. I'm just going to take a little bit of that, and make sure you don't use too much. You only want to put a little bit on, just to sort of warm that yellow up and make it look a little bit more realistic. So this is giving us and building up our whole background here. Okay, and again, not too much on the right hand side, on the left hand side there. So there's our actual outline. So now what we're going to do is put some of the little trees on. So you keep this paper in place, and we're going to ink those up, and we're just going to stamp them part on the card, part on the paper. So pretend that this panel isn't here. So when you get to this point here where you're crossing the panel, just sort of rock it slightly, because there's no edges on these. If you miss them like that, don't worry, because that is what the Black Mountain panel is going to do. So it will hide any. You're going to get an actual gap here because you've got the depth of that card to stamp over. So honestly, don't worry about it because you're going to be putting your little mat at the back of it anyway. So a few trees just going down there, some over the top, just to give it a little bit more dimension. Okay, so there's our tree line done. So now we're going to work a little bit further down, and we're going to start on the bit for the actual gate to go into. So we're going to go a lot lower down here. I'm just going to take a quick look at my card to make sure I'm getting it similar. So we're going to go about there, and then we're going to colour down with some more green. So this is the bamboo that I'm using. This is probably my favourite go-to green, even sort of Christmas time I like to use this one. But what I do like about this, I mean, I've experimented with a lot of other inks and things, but what I do like is it's just so, it keeps my fingers cleaner. I don't get very messy when I'm doing this. And the whole concept is just very, very simple and clean, I think. Okay, so when you've got enough grass on, and again, don't be worried about filling the whole thing because you don't need to. We're going to take this off and then we're going to mask out from the bottom down here. Okay, so if you want a little bit of colour behind there as well, just go in with the green and just blend a little bit of colour at the back. So it's not stark white. Again, doesn't have to be a lot, so you'll see I'm getting rid of most of this colour as we work. Okay, so there's our background pretty much done. We're going to leave that in place because the next thing we're going to put in is our fence. So just ink this all over. Now I've put the tree in here as well. Like I said, I've got a lot going on in this card and you don't need to put as much in as I have, but it's hard not to really when you've got a lot of stamps in front of you and you just want to play with them all. So once you've done your brown, so this is bark, and then I'm just going to go around with a darker colour. So this is pine cone that we're using now. So I'm just picking up some little areas, maybe just a little bit down the middle here. And then we're going to stamp that one down. So sometimes for a bigger stamp, I apologise, but it's easier to sort of stand up and do this. So just excuse me a second. Because this is quite a big stamp that we're using. Okay, so always when you're doing a big stamp, you want quite a wet ink as well, so that's quite important. So again, leave that in place there for a minute, and we're going to put some grasses in now. So just along this edge. So this will be behind the hill when we take this off. So it'll look like we've got a little slope in front of our fence. And before I forget, I'm going to take our little bird and we're going to ink this up in two colours. So this is peony. And I'm inking up the front of the bird, as you can see here. I'm not being too precise with it because what I'm going to do is just get the dark brown and we're just going to work all the way around. And you're just going to leave out some of that pink that you can see there, and then I'm going to stamp the little bird just in place there like that. Okay, so there's our little bird with the different coloured chest, and these are great, so if you want to use them for Christmas you can put a little red breast on or a little yellow breast like our lady's done this morning on a lovely card. So the next thing we're going to do is put in our branch at the top. So we're working on our foreground now, so let's use a nice dark brown. So this is the pine cone again. And we've already got our background done. So this is the one that our swing is going to hang from. And again, the swing is great all year round. I just love using the swing. So let's put this about here. Now you could take it so it actually stamps onto this card, but I don't really want to take it that far in. Okay, so there's our little branch. Now our swing we're going to do two-tone as well. So we're going to take it and we're going to use the bark first, all over. And then because I want a little bit of highlight in the middle of the seat here, I'm just going to go up and we're going to do all those little swing edges apart from the middle of the seat here. We're going to put a little bit of darker colour on there as well. And then we're going to take this up the top here and we're just going to hang that down. Now just make sure as well that you haven't got your paper too high, because you want this to be foreground. You don't want your stamped image to go over this, otherwise it'll look like it's behind the hill as well. And this is meant to be foreground. It's a little bit wonky, but it's a bit breezy. Okay, so what we can do now is we can start to fill this out as well. But I think at this point now we can actually take this away. So that shows you the base of your card. So the next thing we're going to do is start to fill this in. So let's put this little tree in as well. And like I said, you don't have to use absolutely everything that I'm using here. I think that's part of the fun of it, because everybody's scene will be different. Okay, so we might just go sort of off the edge a little bit here. So take it alongside the fence instead. Now, if you need to rock it a little bit, don't worry about it. So you want to sort of be catching the edge of that. So this is the purpose. Don't avoid that panel. You want to actually be stamping onto it. It'll make it look more realistic. So now we're going to take our Atlantic and we're just going to start to fill this in. So if any of these go off the edge, it looks much better if you stamp them coming onto that panel. So just rotate your stamp as you work. So we're using quite a lot of different stamps in there. And we'll also put some of these on this little tree as well, just in the foreground here. Okay, so go to the peony. We'll do a few in peony. And then we'll go to the leaf. So you can also put some little flowers behind the fence as well if you want. I'm sorry I'm going so fast. I'm trying to sort of get as much of this in as we can. Okay, so now let's go to our leaf. So we're going back to our bamboo colour. And the other thing I like about this is because we're stamping and colouring in exactly the same ink, you know all those colours are going to match absolutely beautifully. And I've got to be honest, the pigment inks are just amazing. These ones, the little Sukaniko ones, are just great. Such a lovely finish on them and really pretty colours. Okay, so there is that. Now we're going to start to add our little details. So we've got our rabbit to put on here. So again, we're going to use the two colours. So let's use the bark and then followed by the pine cone. So again, we're just picking up on the edges. Okay, in fact, let's use a darker one. That looks like my paler one. There we go. It's a bit better. A little bit. And then, because you don't want it to be completely, sort of, you don't want any lines in there where your two browns meet, we just sort of dabbed over it a little bit. So our little rabbit just sits there like that. He's quite lovely and dark. I really like that colour. Okay, so now we'll put some little vines in. So this is from the Swings and Things. This is just designed to sort of trail down. So I've done that, let that pale out so it looks like it's behind him. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing again, but the other way around so it doesn't look the same. Okay. And then if you want to, you can have a few of these just hanging down. Now bear in mind, I wanted to show you the bunting. So I want to try and leave a little bit of room for that as well. So what you really need with this is a little pencil. So I'm just going to take my pencil and just do this across there. Do it very lightly because all this is for is to give you just a guide as to where your bunting's going to go. So this is the bow bunting. So my first one is going to go about here. And then we're going to use another one. So let's stick with the peony colours that we've already started using. So you're just sort of making them touch and you're just roughly following that line. You want it pale so you don't actually have to rub that out in the end. And 9 times out of 10 you can't actually see it when you've finished anyway. So this one's a nice colour as well. This is Hyacinth. And then we're just going to repeat those colours. So I'm going to go over with that one again. And this time I've put a little bit of Atlantic on there. And like I said, if it goes over the edge, just try and sort of press a little bit on that right hand side so you're catching this side as well. And then one more, I think, just finish us off on that side. And there we go. Okay. So let's just get some more grass. I'm just going to put a little bit just in front of that hill as well. So no two cards I ever do are ever the same. So don't worry about that. It's a nice thing, I think. So we're just going to tie this in so it looks like it's coming from the tree. And we're just going to go dot to dot like this, and then just a little bit in between if you're fussy like I am. Okay, and then we could just put a little bow there, but let's just leave that. So one of my favourite ones is the little balloon stamps as well. So we're going to tie a couple of little balloons to this and have one just trailing off in the distance up here. So let's do this one. In fact, let's do it in hyacinth because we want it nice and pale so it looks distant. And then what I tend to do is just use a little pencil line because you want it faint. So I don't want to use my black. So that one is one that's escaped. So let's do a couple of balloons just on the front here from the fence. So it's almost like a little garden party going on here. So let's do one about here. And don't worry if you can see your background through here. It really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, a lot of balloons you can sort of see through the semi-transparent anyway. So it really doesn't matter. And there's no right or wrong really anyway. Okay, so let's put that one in. And then let's just see if we can get another stamp out of that. It saves us doing it again. And then what we'll do is just tie these onto the fence. Okay, like that. And then just finish it off now with a little sort of streamer that's actually designed for the balloons, that comes off the balloons, but I just love to hang it like a little streamer. So I'm not going to do too much on this panel because remember, we've still got our greeting to get on there as well. But can you see how I'm stamping and I'm letting it go over this panel because it'll really just add to that effect when we're finished. Okay, I'm sorry this is a long one, it's just that we've put quite a bit in here. So the last thing that we've got to do is just to put our little greeting on, and because we've got quite a lot of colour on here, I'm just going to use the archival black. Okay, so let's just stamp that down on this panel. So you want it central or fairly central on that panel, and this should stand out quite well on here. You could always emboss this with some embossing powder if you wanted to. Okay, when you've got to this point, all we have to do then is to take that little panel off, and what we're going to do is glue it onto its backing card here. So this glue allows you to sort of reposition for a while. If you're using Pritt pads to sort of raise it up, then I'd put a little bit of Pritt stick on the bottom because it'll just allow you a little bit of leeway, because it can be quite messy, but it'll give you a little bit of leeway to sort of move it around to make sure you get this central on this panel before you actually stick that down. So once that's stuck in place, I'm going to use a little bit. Now this is where you can use your Pritt pads if you want to, but like I said, just try and make sure that you actually get this quite level when you put this on. And if you, like I said, if you're using Pritt pads as well, use a little bit of Pritt stick or something underneath so you can actually move it around a bit, because you can see what I'm doing now. Sorry about my head, by the way. I'll try and move that a little bit forward. Better if you can stand up over it, because you can actually see and make sure you're lining that up exactly. So you'll probably be able to tell me whether I've got that right or not later on. But there we go. So that's our little card. A little bit of glossy accents. So pull out one of the balloons like this. So I never do all of them, but we'll just do some of them. And then let's put a little bit of liquid pearls just in these centres, and I do apologise, mine's starting to run out now, so if we get a big splat, you know why. So a little bit just in the centres there like that, and it just sort of makes those flowers pop again. Okay, so that's it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was sort of informative, and I hope that the lady that asked knows now how to do that little hill. I hope that's helped you. Thank you very much. Bye.